My name is Trebby Johnson, and I'm sitting here in my yard by this old apple tree, which is inexplicably dying this year, which makes me very sad because I really like it. And I'm sitting here to honor it, and also because it's part of the search that I set out on many years ago, and that has culminated just a few days ago in the publication of my new book, Radical Joy for Hard Times: Finding Meaning and Making Beauty in Earth's Broken Places. And I'm really excited about it because it describes the journey that I was on, and that I've discovered many people have been on, whose stories I've also told, to discover a way of living with and thinking about and behaving towards the places that we care about that are lost or under threat. The places in our lives are so meaningful to us. They teach us about life. They are the embracers of us in all the major moments and all the minor moments, for that matter, of our lives. They stay in our consciousness and in our heart and in our souls, even when we've left or they've left. So what do we do when something happens to them? This search actually began for me in 1987, a long time ago, when I was living in New York and working as a writer and producer of multimedia scripts. And one year, a bunch of us got a project from IBM to find an inspiring person to do a video about and live presentation. It had nothing to do with IBM or computers. It was just meant to be a story about someone who had a great attitude and had succeeded in life, and whose story would inspire the people who had done well for the company that year. So I went to the New York Public Library and discovered a man named David Powless from the Oneida Nation. He had received a very prestigious National Science Foundation grant to recycle steel waste. We pitched the idea to IBM. David agreed to it, and so we went out to the Oneida lands in Wisconsin to talk to David. While we were there, he told a story, and just a few words of that story moved me so much that it started me on this journey that has lasted all these years. He said that after he'd gotten this grant, he drove out in his car to the Kaiser Steel plant in California. He took 2 buckets out of his car. He was going to fill them with samples of the steel waste and bring them back to his lab to analyze them. And he climbed up to the top of this huge mountain of iron oxide, this red, hard-packed mountain. And he said he was feeling very cocky. He was the first Native American ever to win this prestigious grant. He wasn't even 40 years old. So he got up to the top and he said to this mountain, "I will conquer you." And then by the time he got back down to his car, he just realized that that was all the wrong approach. As an Oneida, he had grown up with his family and all the people in their community saying what was called the opening. You say a prayer to all of creation in gratitude before a meeting, before any gathering. And this gratitude is for the stones, the rocks, the rivers, the trees, the animals, the ravens, the birds, the fish, all the way down to humans. He thought of that prayer and he asked Creator, "What shall I do to be in relationship with this mountain?" And a moment later he said he realized the waste is not an enemy to be conquered. It is an orphan that has gotten separated from the circle of life. My job is to bring it back to the circle of life. Those words really stunned me. The waste is an orphan from the circle of life, not an enemy to be conquered. And I started to think about this way of treating places that are hurt and damaged. It starts recycling it in the mind before they even begin to be recycled on the earth. It takes something that's neglected and makes it loved. It takes something that is an eyesore and looks for beauty in it. It takes something that's an outcast and brings it back into gratitude, appreciation, the heart of the community. It recognizes that it still has a life, even though it doesn't have the life that it used to have. And so I set out on this search to find a way to bring this way of thinking into all people who care about what happens to the places they love. It couldn't, what I found, couldn't borrow from Native American traditions. It had to be a tool that was applicable to anyone, and it had to be accessible at any time. It had to be a tool that you could take out and use if you just came upon a place that was hurt on the spur of the minute and needed to recognize it in some way. It had to be something that one person could use or that a whole group of hundreds could use. It had to be something that was pleasant to use, that people didn't set out to with dread, like, oh, I'm going to have to write a check, I'm going to have to call somebody while they're having dinner. That it would be fun and pleasurable and creative, and that when you used this tool, you would feel that you were a part of life and a part of place and a part of community. You would find reconciliation with the place that you had perhaps been ignoring. So off I went on this search that took all of these years, many, many years. I was on my own search, asking myself questions. Anytime I met anybody who expressed sadness about a place they'd lost, I talked to them. I interviewed people who are doing really innovative work to bring art and creativity and community into seriously damaged places like Rwanda, which experienced genocide, and a town in Alabama that was devastated by a tornado. I tried to learn how to live with gas fracking in my own community. And I started working with an organization that I founded, also called Radical Joy for Hard Times, to create very simple, accessible ways of bringing beauty into hurt places. And that work has now taken place all over the world, on every continent, and in ways that are very, very specific to the people who do it, from scientists in Antarctica to a group of young caretakers of a permaculture garden in Kabul, Afghanistan, to a single person doing an act of beauty in Washington State for endangered wolves. So this is the book. It's gotten some really good testimonials so far, and some good reviews. I'm doing some interviews. So I hope you'll look it up. It's in bookstores now and online, Radical Joy for Hard Times. And I hope that it will help you to fall in love again with the wounded places that you love.